Back more Avatar The Last Airbender. This is episode 2 of season 3. Very excited to carry on, as always, and see where else we're going to be kind of going with this season. We had a really strong premiere. I can't wait to see where a lot of the characters are going to be headed, and how the story goes on, where the focus will kind of go next. So, interesting positions, leaving off with Aang kind of needing to stay undercover, I guess, on the down low for a bit, let people think that he's dead. Zuko's back home now, but Azula, being Azula, has kind of set him up for yet another fall. So whether or not that kind of plays out, we'll have to wait and see. Probably will, because it's Azula. So yeah, I am intrigued by Zuko's journey as well. And hopefully he will kind of come to his senses, realise he's done bad, he did the wrong thing. But yeah, I'm just excited to be carrying on. It's been a little while since I've watched it now. It's been a couple of weeks. It's been a busy time and I haven't had a spare moment to watch Avatar, sadly. But yeah, back into it now. So let's get into the next episode.
Who's there?
Same. I don't enjoy talking to people either.
Those are enemy birds.
Ta-da! Normal kid. I should probably wear shoes, but then I won't be able to see as well. Sorry, shoes. How do I look? Mom's necklace. Oh yeah. I guess it's pretty obviously Water Tribe, isn't it?
Aww.
It couldn't be more obvious that you don't belong here. Next time you play hooky, you might want to take off your school uniform.
Oh no. Well, that's unfortunate.
Your etiquette is terrible. In the homeland, we bow to our elders.
He's older than you.
And we don't wear head coverings indoors.
I have a scar. It's really embarrassing.
Very well.
I mean, he's really rolling with it. I will give him that. Life comes at you fast.
Angie is my girlfriend. Don't forget it.
It was nice
Possessive
meeting
much?
you. We were on our way to play hide and explode. You want to come? I'd love to.
Sorry? Hiding what? Children?
I'm going in for a visit. You're going to stand guard here, and no one is going to know about this.
Oh, I was going to say, is it Iroh? Oh no, look at him.
Uncle, it's me.
Oh.
I'm learning new things about the Fire Nation. I already have a picture of Fire Lord Ozai. And here's one that I made out of noodles.
Impressive, I admit.
I guess we'll never find out about the secret river then. It goes right to the Fire Lord's palace. We were supposed to learn about it in class tomorrow.
It's actually an interesting way of getting intel, isn't it?
You have no right to judge me, Uncle. I did what I had to do in Ba Sing Se, and you're a
Well.
fool for not joining me.
Well,
You're not going to say anything? You're a crazy old man. You're crazy. And if you weren't in jail, you'd be sleeping in a gutter.
trying to get a reaction from him. Not going to do it.
Fire Lord! Blah, blah, blah.
I wouldn't go blah 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 blah.
The Air Nomads didn't have a formal military. Sozin defeated them by ambush.
Well, I don't know how you could possibly know more than our national history book.
Oh,
Unless you went there 100 years ago.
it's like British history books always telling us at school how great the British were when we just invaded everything.
Who's on?
It's like that bit from The Simpsons.
Nobody shows my Angie anything, especially movement.
Oh dear.
Picking fights on your second day? We need to have a conference.
He was
to discuss
framed.
your punishment. Bring your parents to my office after school.
Parents?
Oh no.
Be late.
He's gonna get soccer to pretend to be his dad or something, isn't he?
Thank you for coming, Mr. and Mrs. Fire! Wang fire! This is
Christ, this is gonna be a disaster.
Sapphire Fire, nice to meet you.
Young man, as soon as we get home, you're gonna get the punishment of a lifetime.
That's what I like to hear.
Okay, that went better than I thought it would.
You're so beautiful and you hate the world.
Oh god, kill me now.
Zuko, could I have a word with you? I hear you've been to visit your Uncle Fatso in the prison tower.
Screw you.
Lord told you.
No, you did. Just now.
Oh dear.
I'm looking out for you. If people find out you've been to see Uncle, they'll think you're plotting with him. Just be careful, Dum-Dum.
And that you want a confirmation that he'd been.
That settles it.
I'm having fun for once. Just being a normal kid. You don't know what it's like, Sokka. You get to be normal all the time. Ha! Listen, guys.
I guess that's
those
true,
kids in
actually.
school are the future. We need to show them a little taste of freedom.
What could you possibly do for a country of depraved little fire monsters?
I'm gonna throw them a secret dance party.
Oh boy.
Go to your room.
See, I quite like this. Is why it's interesting to have a kid as the avatar. Because he can bring a different kind of piece, I guess. Brings different ways of balancing people out. Awkward invites, eh? Would you like to come to my cave for a party? Definitely won't murder you. Damn.
Who knew Twinkle Toes could dance?
Aw.
I brought you
Meanwhile-
some chicken.
Depression.
I know you don't care for it, but I figure it beats prison food. I know he's out there. I'm losing my mind. Please, Uncle, I'm so confused. I need your help.
Well, you should have thought of that, young man.
Forget it. Waste away here for all I care.
Yeah, until you come back tomorrow with some more food. Oh, Wyro, don't cry. When you cry, I cry.
Wow, they look pretty good together.
If that's what you like.
Oh. That's more like how I dance.
These shoes aren't really right for dancing, and I'm not sure that I know how to take my hand. Okay.
Ah, so instinctively trusting of him.
Hang, everyone's watching. Don't worry about them. It's just you and me right now.
Oh. Ah. Wholesome.
It is a dancing.
Oh dear.
You did the right thing by telling me today.
I knew it was going to be this snake.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
Looking for me?
I like how Aang's teaching them what to like express themselves, but to kind of help them out, they're all,
Looking for?
you know, similar to him.
Over here.
And that's how they're expressing themselves in a twisted way. Ah, you kids are alright.
You can take off the mustache now.
Oh, no, I can't. It's permanently glued to my skin.
Wait, no, Dancy Pants. I think you really did help those kids. That was some dance partying. Mwah.
Flamey-o, sir. Flamey-o. The Avatar's alive. I want you to find him. And end him.
Oh my. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound brilliant. Okay, I adored this episode. I thought it was fantastic. The fact that Avatar makes an episode you could kind of pitch as Aang throws a dance party. The fact that that can be really fun and entertaining and not feel like do we have time for this? Is this filler? Is just testament to how great this show is. Because again, it speaks to, I think, what Aang could bring to, you know, the world as the Avatar, who could kind of bring balance across all the nations and try and bring like peace and harmony and stuff. And, you know, he's encouraging self-expression, and kind of the ideas of freedom to a bunch of kids that are kind of being fed potentially incorrect history. I'm not one to say if it, you know, really go down the way they're teaching it or not. Probably not. And, you know, very restricted, and you can't dance to the rhythm, you know, you have to do certain things, behave in certain ways, very restricted in that sense. Which is obviously that way the snaky guy, who was like, she's my girlfriend, you know, he was obviously raised that way to kind of be that kind of snitch. It's so enforced in him that, you know, he doesn't really see the alternative. So, you know, you can't really blame him really for being a snake, even though he is a snake, because that's just, he was raised to be that way, and he hasn't met someone like Aang to properly show him maybe a different way of thinking and expressing himself. But the way that Aang kind of brought that to people and, you know, challenges their way of thinking it and acting, and, you know, going against what they've been taught and what the Fire Nation kind of represents, you know, bringing balance to that in a way, because it's not like he started a revolution and he was like yelling at them to like, oh, your leaders are wrong, your ideals are wrong, your politics are wrong, and you need to kind of protest this and go against this entirely and burn your schools to the ground, you know, tell your parents how wrong they were. He's not going lecturing them about that. He was like, you know, dancing can be fun. That's a good kind of way of expressing yourself. You know, it's kind of a harmless way of just kind of escaping the restrictions of the Fire Nation kind of putting on, you know, these kids. And they are just school kids. It's not like he's going around to, you know, all the ancient elders of the villages and all the adults kind of trying to, you know, preach my way is the best way. Maybe it's about working his way up to that. Maybe that's just not how he's going to run things, because it's more like he's bringing balance to all the different nations. And to see him kind of do that, I think it's a really interesting spin on the fact that the Avatar is, I mean, technically 112 years old, but really he's a child. And that's kind of what his priorities are, you know, like just dance and express yourself rather than thinking big. And sometimes I think that could be a cool thing to have, this Avatar who's supposed to bring balance and peace and all of that across all the nations, who can, like, you know, master all the elements and stuff. The fact that he is just, you know, a child right now, it's just a different size to what the Avatar could offer people in terms of that balance, which I think is really cool. So I love that they kind of use this episode to explore that idea. And I also like it when they're like, you know, people in the Fire Nation aren't all really bad. This is how they were raised, how they were brought up. And then there are some people, you know, who will take it too far, like Azai. And that's kind of how it is. And very timely to tying to real world issues, actually, thinking of it in that sense, which is quite deep. But yeah, I love that idea of, you know, this is something, a somewhat harmless way, in a sense. Obviously, we don't know how these kids will be reprimanded, but they did still kind of express themselves, even just for this one night. They've kind of, Aang's made that difference to them. You know, it's a cool way of showing what the Avatar being a child could actually do. That maybe an adult Avatar, you know, who's kind of forgotten what it is to be a child, or, you know, didn't have all this responsibility dumped on him so young. You know, it's a very different way of going about things. So I love that they explored that in this way and didn't outright say, like, this is what Aang can offer being a 12-year-old Avatar. It's just, this is how Aang deals with it. You know, it wasn't about him being the Avatar, really. He was just by his own very nature doing it, and that's why he's suited to be the Avatar. So I really like that they showed that, and just showcased that fun-loving side of Aang, which sometimes he kind of has to simmer down. And we definitely saw it in the last episode. You kind of feel like, you know, he has to go quietly. He has to let people think he's dead. He has to kind of be someone else a bit, and he still has to have that because he's hiding his, arrow with the headband and everything. And I like that then became a key thing into his escape, because all the other kids then started wearing headbands. So their way of showcasing their freedom and their new thoughts, kind of going against the rules of the Fire Nation stuff, were actually by being uniform and all wearing and trying to look like Aang did. So by all being the same, which is kind of the Fire Nation's way, it would seem, they're teaching them all the same ideals, trying to raise them all to be the same person, essentially. At least that's the impression you would get. They're not really... They're still doing what the Fire Nation would want them to do, but by being all the same thought process and stuff. But in doing so, it's actually kind of taking a stand against that, which I think is kind of crazy and very cleverly done. So I love how that was expressed in this one. It was a very, very clever idea. And yeah, it was just cool to see them have a bit of fun, I guess, given how things have been a bit heavy and crazy lately. And we still did get that side of things with Zuko and Iroh's story and stuff in this one. But yeah, that was great, the idea of self-expression. And how sometimes, there's a lot of problems that come and struggles that come with the Avatar being so young. But I like that this episode explored, there can be a lot of good that he can do too, that adult avatars just simply maybe can't anymore, because they're not kids anymore. So I like that, and they kind of made that point very clear at the end with what Toph was kind of saying, thinking Aang had really helped those kids. Hopefully they're not all just savagely beaten and punished for it, but, maybe that's something that they'll explore in future. Hopefully not. I'd rather they not have, and all those children were tortured and killed. I'd rather not get that info dump in future. I like to think maybe they were a bit reprimanded, but they know something, maybe the flame has been lit to start something bigger, maybe. But they might have to wait a while. We'll see. We'll see what happens when Aang kicks his eyes butt, hopefully. So yeah, that was great. And also another little moment I thought was interesting in relation to Aang and Zuko's stories often being linked. Aang's cover story for wearing the headband in the school, and that whole thing was crazy as it was. He just happened to pick up a school uniform, so he was thrown into that, and that's what started all of this. And Aang really just rolled with it. That's what I appreciate about everyone in this episode. They just rolled with it. Aang's like, well, I'm a student now, I guess. Cool. And then that got him some intel, which was interesting. And then we had Sokka and Katara pretending to be his parents, and they just rolled they rolled with that as well. And then everyone was like, oh, party, okay, let's have a dance party in this random cave and invite people. Sure, why not? Let's go for it. And they just roll with it. I guess they could just kind of have to at this point, otherwise they'd go mad. But the fact they're still, they're all very young, and they can just take these high pressure situations and just make the best of it. It's very impressive. But yeah, when Aang was kind of like, oh yeah, I have a scar there, it's embarrassing, and that was his excuse for keeping the headband on, so he didn't kind of get exposed in that way. I did think that was an interesting kind of thing in terms of Zuko's scar, that he can't hide, and there was potential of that getting removed by Katara, obviously at the end of last season. That ended up not coming about, and I'm glad it didn't. But I thought that was kind of interesting that the teacher was just like, okay, cool, fair enough. She didn't really argue that reason. And yeah, it's an interesting tie, I guess, that was where Aang's mind went. So I think, some people, maybe Aang included, still probably see Zuko as defined by his scar, and that's one of the first things that you may think about when you think of Zuko. But obviously there's a lot more to him. As an audience, we know there's a lot more to him, but from Aang's point of view, he's still very much been horrible and the villain. And that's kind of what defines Zuko to him right now, and maybe that will change, maybe it won't. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting commentary as well, and maybe I'm just reading too much into that, as I often do, but I thought that was an interesting thing to note, that's where, Aang's mind went. It's like why he needs to keep that on. I mean, it's just a clever excuse anyway, but, I don't think it was a coincidence from a writing standpoint that he kind of brought up, oh yeah, I have a scar there, when, one of the core characters in the show, very much has had a struggle by having a scar in half of his face. So I thought that was interesting. And just learning a bit more about the Fire Nation culture, the fact that they just don't really dance. They have all these histories that Aang was like, no, that's not right, I was there, but obviously he can't say he was there. But I think a lot of places, when they teach their history to kids, they kind of make themselves look good, and that certainly was the case for schools here. They certainly made the British out to be a lot more heroic, a lot better than they actually were in reality, because we just nicked everything from everyone and put labels on it and said it's ours. So I like that kind of commentary and a very realistic thing. So I think the history books to do. So I liked all of that, and the fact that there were some nice students in there, and they all kind of just took to Aang fairly quickly, apart from obviously the one snake. So yeah, Angie, I think her name was, she seemed quite nice. And all the other students who kind of helped Aang escape by wearing the headbands, I thought very, very wholesome. There were a lot of kind of wholesome moments to this story, which I think was another reason I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really expecting to go into this season and have an episode that felt for the most part quite fun. So I thought, okay, serious business now. Time is running out. Zuko and Iroh are all over the place. Aang got critically injured. He kind of died. So the fact that episode 2 of this season was dance party, yeah, was a pleasant surprise, and one I very much enjoyed. So yeah, that was great, and just seeing what Aang can do for people. And then it kind of advanced some other relationships as well. I think particularly with Katara, we saw a lot of jealous Katara in this one, when Aang and Angie were dancing stuff, and when Katara came out in her new outfit, Aang was all blushing and stuff. So there's more setup there for those two, I think, to inevitably get together at some point, probably right at the end of the show. But I like that they're focusing again on it. It's more and more becoming a mutual thing rather than Aang has a crush. I think we've seen Katara slowly come around to the idea of her and Aang. And I think she's very much feeling the same way now. So it's nice to kind of see that development, and I love the scene of them dancing together. Everyone's just watching; they don't really care. When Aang was kind of saying, it's me and you. So it's kind of the focus was on those two and their relationship, as we have in this very same episode Zuko and his love interest. Focusing on each other and having their own relationship. I mean. What was it he said? You're so beautiful when you hate the world. Needs work, Zuko, I would say. But I'm sure May appreciated it. That seems like something she'd like. I mean, I'm not often pleased to see Azula pop up, but I was like, oh, thank God, because there's no way in hell he'd say something like that in front of his sister. Yeah, that was quite the line, and I hope we never have to see that again. But I guess it's nice that Zuko and May seem to have had some time to reconnect, and they're obviously a thing again. Hopefully we get a bit more delving into that relationship at some point, and just to learn a bit more about May as a character, because I don't think we've gotten that much of her yet. But we'll see where that leads. But Azula kind of getting in there, tricking Zuko into revealing he's been visiting Iroh. And she's like, I'm just looking out for you. If people find out about this, they're going to think you're scheming with him. And yet she's the only person who knows. And she went there, and the first thing she did was try to get that information out of him. No one else actually told her. So I'm sure she wanted that information to use for her own gains at some point. So she's still very much working behind the scenes and pretending it's, out of care for her brother, when I don't think she actually gives a shit. So yeah, she's just still being her best self, I guess, having a wonderful time being, the villain of the piece. So yeah, that's gonna be painful later on down the line. But I love that Zuko's still going to see Iroh. Obviously, he's doing the classic Zuko teenage boy angsty thing of lashing out when he's not getting what he wants after 5 seconds. But I think he's just desperate to get a reaction out of Iroh at this point. And Iroh's not going to give him the satisfaction, I think it's still incredibly hard on Iroh to do that, as we saw. He ended up crying at the end there, because I think his connection with Zuko meant so much to him. So for that to kind of get thrown back in his face must be devastating. After he lost his son, Zuko was kind of the closest thing he had to that kind of bond with anyone. So for that to kind of, to feel that betrayal must have been really painful for him. But I do like that he's not just caving to Zuko's demands out of care and like giving him the satisfaction of talking to him or whatever. He still, he still has his principles and he still has his morals, and I think he's sticking to that while also suffering on the inside because of it. Because I'm sure he wants to reach out and help Zuko when he's there, saying like, "Please, Uncle, help me out." But I like that he's not in the place yet to be like, "No, I'm not talking to you yet." I think he senses that Zuko's just, he's not in the place where, Iroh can help him again yet. And I think Iroh's often, I think, let Zuko just develop on his own and make his own choices. And I think he's just kind of biding his time and waiting for Zuko to come to the realization, like, okay, I mucked up here. And he's going to, Zuko needs to be the one to make these big steps. Iroh's not going to meet him halfway yet because it's Zuko's journey. Iroh's comfortable with who he is. He's found who he is. He's at the end of his journey, not as in, like, he's about to die. I certainly bloody hope not. If Iroh dies, I riot. But, he's kind of gone through that development to find who he is. He's an older man. He's like an older guy now. He's kind of gone through all that. He's willing to wait for Zuko to kind of get to that point as well and properly accept who he is, come to terms with, what he's done, etc., kind of become his best self. And then I think he's like, okay, now I can help you because you're where you need to get yourself. Now I can help you and hold your hand for the rest of the way and help you cross the finish line. And that's kind of how I see it. I could be, again, talking absolute bullshit, but I guess we'll see. We've got, 19 episodes left? Let's see if I'm proved right. But that's how I'm reading it right now. And the fact that I'm reading that much into it, and Iroh didn't say a bloody word in this episode, I think is testament to, the incredible character work that they've done with Zuko and Iroh thus far. Because it's all been completely one-sided, their scenes in this one. I don't think Iroh spoke, because I was kind of like waiting. I was like, oh, what does a new voice sound like? But not quite yet. Still need to be a bit more patient, I guess. But maybe that's purposeful as well, because there's a new voice actor. Maybe they're just waiting to kind of delve into it and see how it flowed. I don't know. But yeah, that was really sad to see. Zuko still kind of pushing for a reaction, because I think he's getting the inklings now that he made the mistake, isn't he? And I think that's why he's lashing out. He's just angry at himself, not at Iroh. Because he's like, oh, you're the worst person in the world. Fine, you can rot in here for all I care. And then the next day he comes back with, oh, I bought you some food, Uncle. He really does care. And he just hates, having to admit that he was wrong, I guess. And I think he's just still lashing out because of his own self-hatred and self-loathing and guilt from what he did. So yeah, painful, but I'm sure, we're going to get to a point where those two make some kind of amends. I certainly hope so anyway. But yeah, maybe we have to wait a little while longer for that yet. But we also, because Iroh isn't helping Zuko out right now, he's turned to this other random assassin-y guy, I guess. He knows deep down that Aang's still alive. And now he's sent this guy after him. So I guess that's going to be our new imminent threat for the gang to deal with. He's going to have this guy coming after Aang, trying to kill him. So I guess because Azula is like back at the Fire Nation, and I don't think she really has any plans to keep going after the Avatar because, I don't think she thinks Aang's dead, but she needs to kind of keep up the pretense that she does think that, so that Zuko can take the fall for it if the truth comes out. So she's not going anywhere anytime soon. So they do need a villain to actively, I guess, chase after the team. And that's going to be this new guy, I guess. So I'm excited to learn a bit more about what his whole deal was with like his like sideways eye tattoo almost. I don't know, interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. But, Zuko taking some steps to getting rid of Aang, but he's not doing it himself. So is that progression in a way? He's not actively trying to kill him with his own two hands, just paying someone else to do the dirty work. It's probably not development. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel there. Zuko just needs to get his act together, doesn't he? But yeah, I am intrigued about where that's going to go. Hopefully that'll be interesting. But yeah, everyone kind of had some really great moments in this. I do enjoy Sokka just really going ham on his kind of role as fake Aang's dad. And he like glued the beard on so it wasn't going to come off. And really getting into character and stuff. Being overly kind of cautious at the start as well about, we're in enemy territory. Let me super scour out all these places before we live in this cave. Classic Sokka stuff, so we had some great moments. I like Toph as well, being like, I'm not going to wear these shoes properly. She like ripped off the soles, I think, so she could still like feel things in the earth and stuff, which makes a lot of sense. You know, she doesn't want to take such a powerful ability away from herself. It would be probably a very dumb thing to do. So yeah, I really enjoyed, you know, little moments like that we got as well. And yeah, I'm excited to see where things go next. But this was a fantastic episode. I really, really loved it. And I can't wait for the story to continue. But very, very strong start to this final season. Unexpected kind of wholesome moments in this one. I really liked what they did with like the whole dance party plot and how it really spoke more to like freedom of speech and expression and what Aang offers as like a young child avatar to the world and what, you know, he could be eventually, should we win the day when all is said and done. And then all the Zuko and Iroh stuff is just painful, but in a good way, in an interesting way. So I'm excited to see where all this is going to go. But yeah, fantastic episode. I loved it. Can't wait for more. And that's going to be everything for now. So until my next reaction, thanks for watching.